Captain Daniel Walsh had been denied combat missions for 2 years. Colonel Davis always said he wasn't cleared for attack operations. But when Bravo Company's 20 soldiers became surrounded by Taliban fighters, every combat Apache was destroyed or grounded. "Any aircraft, this is Bravo Company. We're trapped with heavy casualties," came the desperate call. Daniel looked at his fully armed Apache. "Sometimes you disobey orders to save lives," he told his co-pilot, banking toward the enemy position. What happened next would change everything about his career in combat aviation. The morning sun cast long shadows across Forward Operating Base Chapman in eastern Afghanistan. As Captain Daniel Walsh completed his pre-flight inspection of the AH-64D Apache longbow attack helicopter that had become both his pride and his frustration over the past 2 years. The aircraft represented the pinnacle of modern military aviation technology. A precision instrument of war capable of engaging multiple targets simultaneously at ranges exceeding 8 kilometers. But for Daniel, the Apache had remained primarily a training platform rather than the combat weapon it was designed to be. Despite logging over 400 flight hours and completing every advanced training program the Army offered, he had been consistently denied authorization for combat missions, with senior leadership citing operational priorities. "Walsh, you're cleared for today's patrol route," called Chief Warrant Officer Michael Thompson, his co-pilot and weapons systems officer, who had been assigned to his crew 6 months earlier. Thompson was a veteran of 3 combat deployments, with an extensive record of successful engagements. "Thompson, same route as yesterday?" Daniel asked, reviewing the flight plan that would take them on a reconnaissance mission along the Pakistani border. Close enough to potential combat zones to provide intelligence value, but far enough from active enemy contact to comply with the regulations that governed his operational limitations. "Affirmative. Command wants eyes on the mountain passes, but we're restricted to observation and reporting only. No engagement authority unless we take direct fire." Daniel had heard those same restrictions countless times over the past 2 years. He was qualified to fly one of the world's most advanced attack helicopters, trained to employ its sophisticated weapon systems with precision that could eliminate enemy threats at extreme ranges, but prohibited from using those capabilities in the combat operations for which he had trained. The policy had been established by senior leadership, citing command-level priorities that limited combat assignments. Daniel had repeatedly demonstrated capabilities that exceeded expectations, but institutional barriers prevented him from proving himself in the operational environment where those capabilities mattered most. "Thompson, hypothetically speaking, if we encountered a situation where American lives were at immediate risk, would you support engaging targets outside our current authorization?" Daniel asked as they completed their system checks. "Walsh, you know I can't answer that question officially," Thompson replied. "But I will say that I've never flown with a pilot who demonstrated better weapons employment skills during training exercises." The compliment was significant coming from Thompson, whose combat experience included successful engagements against enemy forces throughout Afghanistan and Iraq. His confidence in Daniel's abilities stood in stark contrast to the institutional hesitation that had kept Walsh from operational missions. 20 minutes later, Daniel lifted the Apache from the forward operating base and turned northeast toward the patrol route that would keep them within the boundaries established by current policy. The flight path followed the border region where Taliban forces were known to operate, but at distances that typically prevented direct engagement with enemy forces. The Apache performed flawlessly as they climbed to cruising altitude, its twin turboshaft engines providing the power necessary to carry advanced sensors, communication equipment, and weapon systems that made it one of the most capable platforms in the American military inventory. "Walsh, we're receiving multiple radio transmissions on emergency frequencies," Thompson reported, monitoring communication channels that carried traffic from units operating throughout the region. Daniel had been trained to monitor emergency communications during all flights, understanding that situational awareness often meant the difference between successful missions and catastrophic failures. The radio chatter indicated increased activity in areas where American forces were conducting operations, but nothing that required immediate response from their aircraft. That changed dramatically when they intercepted a transmission that would test every aspect of Daniel's training and challenge the restrictions that had defined his military career. Any aircraft, this is Bravo Company, came the desperate voice over the emergency frequency. We are surrounded by overwhelming enemy forces with heavy casualties and no available extraction. 20 soldiers trapped. Coordinates follow, requesting immediate close air support. The transmission was followed by GPS coordinates that placed Bravo Company approximately 15 kilometers from Daniel's current position, well within the response range of his Apache, but outside the geographical boundaries he was authorized to operate within. Walsh, that's outside our patrol area, Thompson said, recognizing the tactical implications of the situation. We'd need permission from command to divert for close air support. Daniel looked at the tactical display showing Bravo Company's position in mountainous terrain that provided numerous advantages to enemy forces while leaving American soldiers exposed and vulnerable. The coordinates indicated they were surrounded in a valley with limited escape routes, facing enemy forces that had likely planned the engagement to maximize American casualties. Thompson, how long would it take to get clearance from command for combat operations? Minimum 30 minutes, probably longer given current policy restrictions, Thompson replied. Daniel understood that 30 minutes would be far too long for soldiers facing overwhelming enemy forces with limited ammunition and multiple casualties. The request for immediate close air support indicated that Bravo Company was facing a tactical situation that required intervention within minutes rather than hours. Thompson, I need your professional assessment. Based on the radio traffic, what's Bravo Company's survival probability if they don't receive air support within the next 10 minutes? Thompson had enough combat experience to recognize desperation in radio communications. The urgency in the transmission, combined with reports of heavy casualties and overwhelming enemy forces, indicated that Bravo Company was facing annihilation unless they received immediate assistance. Walsh, honestly, if they don't get help immediately, those 20 soldiers are probably going to die. Daniel made a decision that would either save American lives or end his military career. Thompson, we're diverting to provide close air support to Bravo Company. Plot an intercept course and prepare weapon systems for immediate engagement. Walsh, that's a direct violation of our current orders. We don't have authorization for combat operations. Thompson, 20 American soldiers are about to die unless someone with the capability to help them decides that saving lives is more important than following regulations that prevent us from doing our jobs. Thompson understood the implications of Daniel's decision. They would be operating outside their authorized patrol area, engaging in combat operations without command approval, and potentially facing disciplinary action that could end both their careers. But Thompson also understood that the alternative was allowing 20 soldiers to die when they possessed the capabilities necessary to save them. Walsh, weapons systems armed and ready. I'm with you on this. Daniel banked the Apache toward Bravo Company's coordinates, increasing speed to maximum as he calculated the time required to reach the engagement area and the tactical options available once they arrived. The flight to Bravo Company's position required 8 minutes of high-speed flight over mountainous terrain that provided numerous opportunities for enemy anti-aircraft fire. Daniel flew at low altitude to minimize radar detection while maintaining sufficient altitude to employ the Apache's weapon systems effectively once they reached the target area. Bravo Company, this is Apache 77, Daniel transmitted as they approached the coordinates. We are inbound to your position for immediate close air support. Prepare to mark enemy positions. Apache 77, Bravo Company, came the relieved response from the ground. We have enemy forces in 3 directions. Approximately 200 Taliban fighters with heavy weapons and mortars. Our ammunition is critically low, and we have multiple casualties requiring immediate evacuation. Daniel could see the tactical situation clearly through the Apache's advanced sensor systems. Bravo Company was positioned on the valley floor, with enemy forces occupying elevated positions on 3 sides, providing the Taliban with both numerical superiority and tactical advantages that made the American position untenable without air support. The enemy had established multiple firing positions using caves, rock formations, and prepared defenses that indicated extensive planning and preparation. The ambush had been designed to trap American forces in a kill zone where they could be systematically eliminated, while Taliban fighters remained protected from return fire. Thompson, I need target priorities. Which positions pose the greatest threat to Bravo Company? Thompson studied the tactical display, identifying enemy positions based on their weapon signatures and their ability to prevent American movement or evacuation. Walsh, we have heavy machine gun positions on the ridgeline to the north and east. Those are preventing Bravo Company from moving to defensible positions. We also have mortar crews to the west that are dropping rounds directly on the American position. Daniel armed the Apache's 30mm M230 chain gun and prepared to engage the first target, understanding that the success of the mission would depend on systematically eliminating enemy positions in sequence to allow Bravo Company to either establish defensive positions or move to extraction points. Bravo Company, keep your heads down. We're engaging enemy positions to your north. Daniel's first attack run targeted the heavy machine gun positions that were preventing Bravo Company from maneuvering to more defensible terrain. The Apache's 30mm cannon fired 625 rounds per minute with precision that allowed him to engage individual fighting positions without risk to nearby American forces. The first burst of cannon fire eliminated 3 Taliban fighters manning a heavy machine gun position, immediately reducing the enemy's ability to suppress American movement. Daniel continued the attack run, engaging additional positions along the northern ridgeline with precision that demonstrated why he had consistently scored at the top during training exercises. Apache 77, outstanding accuracy, came the report from Bravo Company. Enemy fire from the north has been eliminated. We can move to better positions. But Daniel understood that eliminating one set of enemy positions was insufficient when facing numerically superior forces occupying prepared defensive positions throughout the engagement area. Thompson, prep Hellfire missiles. We need to eliminate the mortar positions before they just fire on Bravo Company's new location. The Apache carried 16 AGM-114 Hellfire missiles, precision-guided munitions capable of engaging hardened targets at ranges up to 8 kilometers. Daniel had trained extensively with Hellfires during exercises, but had never employed them in combat due to operational restrictions. Walsh, Hellfire missiles armed and ready. Target designation on the mortar positions to the west. Daniel designated the enemy mortar positions using the Apache's target acquisition and designation system, which provided precision guidance for the Hellfire missiles that would eliminate the Taliban's indirect fire capability. Missile away, Daniel announced, launching the first Hellfire at the primary mortar position that had been dropping rounds on Bravo Company with deadly accuracy. The Hellfire struck the target with devastating effect, eliminating the mortar crew and destroying the weapons system that had been the Taliban's most effective tool for engaging American forces at range. Follow-up missile on secondary mortar position, Daniel called, launching a second Hellfire that eliminated additional enemy indirect fire capability. Apache 77, you just saved our lives, came the transmission from Bravo Company. Mortar fire has ceased, and we're moving to establish defensive positions. But Daniel realized that his mission was far from complete. Intelligence reports indicated that Taliban forces throughout the region were converging on Bravo Company's position, understanding that the isolated American unit represented an opportunity to inflict significant casualties, while demonstrating their ability to defeat American forces even when supported by attack helicopters. Thompson, I'm seeing additional enemy movement from multiple directions. This isn't just the original ambush force. They're being reinforced by fighters from throughout the region. Thompson studied the sensor displays, identifying new enemy positions that were establishing blocking points to prevent Bravo Company's extraction, while additional fighters moved to attack positions that would allow them to overwhelm the Americans through a coordinated assault. Walsh, we're looking at possibly 400 enemy fighters converging on this location. Bravo Company is going to be outnumbered 20-1 within the next 30 minutes. Daniel understood that the tactical situation required more than precision strikes against individual targets. He needed to demonstrate the kind of overwhelming firepower that would convince enemy commanders that continuing the engagement would result in catastrophic losses for Taliban forces. Bravo Company, this is Apache 77. We're going to neutralize enemy forces throughout your engagement area. Stay in covered positions until we complete attack runs. Over the next 20 minutes, Daniel conducted a systematic destruction of Taliban forces that demonstrated capabilities he had never been permitted to employ in 2 years of military service. He engaged enemy fighting positions with 30mm cannon fire that eliminated individual fighters with surgical precision. He employed Hellfire missiles against caves and fortified positions that provided protection from conventional weapons. He used 2.75-inch rockets to neutralize large concentrations of enemy forces attempting to mass for coordinated attacks. Each attack run was executed with precision that maximized enemy casualties, while ensuring zero risk to American forces. Walsh's training had prepared him for exactly this type of engagement, but military policy had prevented him from demonstrating these capabilities in operational environments. Thompson, ammunition status. We're down to our last 4 Hellfire missiles and approximately 200 rounds of 30mm. We've eliminated roughly 150 enemy fighters, but there are still significant Taliban forces in the area. Daniel realized that his ammunition was becoming critically low while enemy reinforcements continued to arrive in the engagement area. He needed to make tactical decisions that would ensure Bravo Company's survival with limited remaining firepower. Bravo Company, what's your status for movement to extraction point? Apache 77, we can move, but we have 5 casualties who require medical evacuation. We need approximately 15 minutes to reach the nearest helicopter landing zone. Daniel understood that 15 minutes would require him to provide continuous air support with dwindling ammunition, while facing enemy forces that were adapting their tactics to counter his attacks. Thompson, we need to make our remaining ordnance count. Priority targets are any enemy forces that can threaten Bravo Company during their movement to extraction. Walsh employed his remaining Hellfire missiles against Taliban positions that commanded the route Bravo Company would use to reach the helicopter landing zone. Each missile eliminated multiple enemy fighters while destroying defensive positions that could have prevented American movement. The final Hellfire targeted a Taliban command position that was coordinating the continued reinforcement of enemy forces throughout the engagement area. The missile eliminated senior Taliban leadership and disrupted the coordination that had made their numerical superiority effective. Bravo Company, path to extraction point is clear. Move immediately. Walsh provided overwatch during Bravo Company's movement to the landing zone, using his remaining 30mm ammunition to engage any Taliban fighters who attempted to interfere with the American withdrawal. 25 minutes later, medical evacuation helicopters successfully extracted all 20 members of Bravo Company, including the 5 wounded soldiers, who received immediate medical treatment that saved their lives. Apache 77, this is Bravo 6, came the final transmission from Bravo Company's commander. You saved 20 American lives today. Outstanding work. Walsh turned the Apache toward Forward Operating Base Chapman, understanding that his decision to engage in combat operations without authorization would result in immediate review by senior leadership and potential disciplinary action that could end his military career. But he also understood that 20 American soldiers were alive because he had been willing to employ capabilities that doctrine had restricted in previous engagements. Thompson, any regrets about today's mission? Walsh asked during the flight back to base. Walsh, I've never flown with anyone who demonstrated better combat effectiveness under pressure. Today proved the capability has nothing to do with regulation and everything to do with training, skill, and the willingness to risk everything to save American lives. 2 hours later, Daniel Walsh found himself in Colonel Davis's office facing disciplinary action for violating direct orders by conducting unauthorized combat operations outside his designated patrol area. Captain Walsh, you directly disobeyed orders that clearly prohibited you from engaging in combat operations, Colonel Davis stated. Your actions were a flagrant violation of established policy regarding the rules of engagement. Sir, 20 American soldiers were facing annihilation by overwhelming enemy forces. I had the capability to save their lives, and military policy should never prevent us from protecting our people when we have the means to do so. Colonel Davis studied the after-action report that documented Walsh's performance during the engagement. The tactical analysis showed that he had eliminated over 150 enemy fighters while suffering 0 friendly casualties and successfully enabling the extraction of all American personnel. Captain Walsh, your mission results are undeniably exceptional, but you violated direct orders and engaged in operations outside your authorized scope. Sir, I understand the policy implications of my actions, but I also understand that policies that prevent qualified personnel from saving American lives need to be reconsidered. 3 days later, Walsh received a call from the Pentagon informing him that senior military leadership wanted to review his case and the broader implications of operational restrictions in combat aviation. 2 weeks after the engagement, Colonel Davis received new orders from Department of Defense leadership directing immediate review of policies that limited the discretion of Apache pilots in combat operations. 1 month later, Captain Daniel Walsh became the first Apache pilot officially cleared for expanded, unrestricted combat authority, with his performance during the Bravo Company rescue serving as the case study that reshaped operational doctrine. His combat record from a single engagement, 150-plus enemy fighters eliminated, 0 American casualties, successful extraction of 20 soldiers under impossible conditions, had proven that combat effectiveness was determined by individual capability and judgment rather than rigid policy. The Taliban forces that had planned to annihilate Bravo Company had instead learned that American attack helicopter pilots possessed the training and determination necessary to protect U.S. soldiers against overwhelming odds. Walsh's decision to disobey orders had saved 20 lives and forced the military to reconsider outdated restrictions that limited combat aviation's effectiveness. Sometimes, the most important battles were fought by people who were willing to do what was necessary rather than what was authorized, proving that protecting American lives transcended every policy that tried to limit how combat roles were defined. Daniel Walsh had flown one unauthorized mission that changed everything about combat aviation, and he had brought every soldier home. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, you can subscribe to see more incredible stories like this.